I graduated with a degree when I was 37, so I was very much a late starter. And I guess the message in that for anybody listening is that it doesn't matter what age you are, you can still do it, you can still chase your dreams, you can still get there. So that opened doors for me that allowed me to get more of a professional qualification and a professional type of work behind me. So I ended up working in economic development. And the reason I'm telling you about that is because I worked in local government and then I went to work for Scottish Enterprise, which is Scotland's national economic development agency. And that's the last time I had a job. So when I was doing that work, I loved helping people. So I'd go around local communities, local businesses, and I'd be the person who linked them with the local government, with all the agencies around Scotland, to help them get the projects together, to help them find the funding.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Your Business, Your Next Level. I'm your host, Eunicia Peret, and today I have William McKissock here in the studio with me. William is a Scotland native who now calls Tampa Bay home, and he brings a strong background in economic development and passion for helping organizations operate more efficiently. Over the past decade, he has specialized in identifying cost reduction opportunities, helping businesses uncover hidden savings and improve their bottom line. His work sits at the intersection of strategy and execution, two of my favorite words, and ensuring that identified opportunities are not only seen, but actually implemented. William, welcome to the show. Let's have some fun.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So tell me a little bit more about yourself and what got you to spend the last decade on helping companies do more with less. It takes me back to many, many years in strategy consulting.
Yeah, I mean, as I said to you before we started recording, I have a bit of a checkered employment history. I started pushing lawnmowers way in my younger years for local government. And then I grew out of that and made my way up the kind of like corporate ladder within government agencies. I educated myself. I graduated with a degree when I was 37. So I was very much a late starter. And I guess the message in that for anybody listening is that it doesn't matter what age you are, you can still do it, you can still chase your dreams, you can still get there. So that opened doors for me that allowed me to get more of a professional qualification and a professional type of work behind me. So I ended up working in economic development. And the reason I'm telling you about that is because I worked in local government and then I went to work for Scottish Enterprise, which is Scotland's national economic development agency. And that's the last time I had a job. So when I was doing that work, I loved helping people. So I'd go around local communities, local businesses, and I'd be the person who linked them with the local government, with all the agencies around Scotland, to help them get the projects together, to help them find the funding. So it's from a helping people perspective is kind of like where I come from. I love that. I love the person when somebody comes up and says, thanks for helping me. Not the thanks part. It's the feeling I get when you help somebody and you know you've been successful at doing so. So fast forward to 2011, I moved to the United States with my wife, Sarah, and my two young kids. They were only 4 and 7 at the time. And I guess the message in this is, even though you're scared, you can still do it, still try things. And I was scared. I'd only ever lived in Scotland. So I came to this country in 2011 and I've tried a few things. I've had a floor cleaning business. I've done franchise consulting. I've had a window cleaning business. I've done all sorts of consulting work. In the last 10 years, I discovered Schoolie Mitchell, which is a franchise that helps businesses reduce costs. And that's where you find me today. And the reason I told you about my background was because of the economic development part where I love helping people. This job I have now, I'm a franchisee, I'm a business owner, and it helps me help businesses, therefore help people keep more of the bottom line by reducing expenses. So long story for a short message, but I think that's an important piece to play for you before you can ask me any more questions.
Absolutely. Well, William, you and I are speaking out of a very similar hymnal. At the end of the day, our whole focus when we work with clients is on helping them preserve their legacy, enhance their legacy. And we do that through looking through the lens of how do we minimize tax exposure? How do we optimize the way money is invested? Where is it invested in a way that actually resonates with the person and ultimately it ends up doing better for the individual? And then kind of from an exit strategy perspective, how do we ensure that whatever that exit strategy looks like for the client, it's not something that was imposed by them externally. It's something that they truly choose they choose their path, right? And you talked about the beauty and the joy of when individuals, they come and they say, thank you. It's not just the thank you is awesome. It feels really good. It's more about how are they feeling?
Yep.
Because what we know is that when individuals work with experts such as yourselves, when on, for example, cost reduction and optimizing and being more efficient, it's not through the lens of putting anybody in a corner. It's through the lens of doing better for their families, doing better for their community. So what I'd love to do is to understand from you today in our interview today, how can leaders become more intentional in that approach to increase operational efficiency and unlock the next level in their businesses?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a very simple view of it is look at your profit and loss. An accountant would tell me that's not the most important form you can draw from your QuickBooks or whatever your software is. Look at your profit and loss, because so many business owners or chief executives or C-suite people that I talk with, they're heavily concentrated on bringing money into the business. They want to do sales, keep bringing more money in. Or the profits don't look so good. Let's sell more, sell more. That's not a bad thing to do. But at the same time, a business should really absolutely be looking at the money going out the door just as much as the money coming in the door. And that's where I come in, and that's where my passion is like, because I want businesses to grow. That the people who help you with sales, the leadership coaches, all that kind of thing, they're great because they'll bring money into the bottom line, the pot of money that's at the bottom line. But that bottom line, that pot of money's got a hole in it, and that hole needs to be plugged. You can't plug all of it because you're always going to have costs in your business. There's always going to be leaks in the bucket. But I believe that a business really should concentrate as heavily on the money going out the door at the other side of the profit and loss, as well as getting the money in. And it's like a natural progression, because if you save 5% on reduced costs, that's equal to 30% of increased sales. And that comes from Gartner. I think that's an actual fact done by a study group. And that resonates with everything that we do and that I do as a Schoolie Metro franchisee. So I'm telling business owners that it's great to bring the revenues in sales and marketing and everything that you do to expose your business. But you really have to be at the back end looking after that money going out the door, because that equally determines what your bottom line looks like. It's actually a very simple equation.
It is a simple equation, and one that unfortunately many individuals don't really, they're thinking that they have visibility into it, and oftentimes they don't, because having QuickBooks and even sometimes having bookkeepers is not enough to truly give someone the visibility into where is the money hiding. In our world, we talk, especially when it comes to tax savings, oftentimes individuals will say, well, it's just an extra 2 or 3%. It's like, yes, and it compounds year over year. And if you're looking at, if you could go back in time and you could save 30, 40, 50%, for example, in our world, in taxes year over year, what would that look like for you? How would that change your life? How would that change your business? How would it change the outlook for your family, for the community? And so in your situation, with all the things that you do on the operational side, is the same thing. It's beautiful that you said that 5% cost reduction equals 30% in increased sales. That's a big magnitude right there. So talk to us, William, a little bit about what are the areas operationally that you typically see businesses maybe not really gain as much visibility into. Where is the money being lost?
Well, as a franchise, we look at specific categories. I'm not going to rattle them all off, but we look at like telecom costs, credit card processing, shipping, waste, office supplies, facility supplies. The staffing costs can be huge for businesses, and we have an arm of what we do to help business with staffing costs. But we've got a team of experts for each one of the categories that a business spends. And I'm not doing this, isn't a marketing or trying to sell my business. I'm just explaining this is where I come from. But one of the biggest messages from that we've got a team of experts. I jokingly call them the geeks at the back end at head office. They're the ones that know telecom inside out. They know waste inside out. They know credit card processing inside out. So all of these vendors that a business is spending their money on, even where they have people in-house negotiating with their vendors and getting really good deals, or as best a deal as they can possibly can, they're still doing it with one hand tied behind their back. And my message kind of resonates along here that if you're negotiating with your vendors, you don't know what they're charging everybody else. So we bring that knowledge to the table. Again, this isn't an advert, because what I'm saying is that although we bring knowledge to the table, a business should always be aware of what the vendors are up to. You need to know their industry. You need to know everything they're doing. You need to understand what they're charging other people. And that can be really difficult for businesses to be able to get a handle on, because they're not negotiating for other businesses. We do that. But having said that, even if you're a business and you don't have somebody like us negotiating for you, if you're paying Verizon, if you're paying Waste Management, if you're paying your FedEx, you need to understand their business and their business model really is almost study them, because that's going to help you negotiate much better rates. It's going to help you understand how the businesses operate. And you need to know the technologies, the mergers, the acquisitions, everything that goes into one of your vendors. It sounds a lot, but that really does make a difference in you being able to get the best service for the best price. And a company like us brings all that knowledge to the table for our clients. It can be difficult for businesses to have that knowledge, but I would recommend that you get as much of that kind of knowledge inside your business as possible, whether you get it from an external organization like Scully Mitchell and myself, or get as much as you can from an internal perspective, because you really should know your vendors, and that makes a huge difference being able to be as streamlined, as efficient and organized as possible. Therefore, you'll spend less money for as best services as you possibly can for equal or better services, and you'll spend less money just by knowing your vendors from the inside out.
I am a huge proponent of knowing the vendors from the inside out, William. And we see, for our listeners, you hear me talk about this a lot when it comes to, for example, the financial services industry. It's very interesting when we speak with clients. Oftentimes they'll come and they'll say, oh yeah, I've been working with this person or that person or this firm or that firm for all these years, and they're friends, and all the things, like they're friends, right? Yep. They're in the friend category. And they come from the other angle and they're like, well, we've worked with XYZ person or team or firm for all this time. And what we've noticed is that whether their money goes up, down, or sideways, the firm still makes money. So then they start asking the question of, well, what gives? How are they incentivized? Because oftentimes individuals do not understand how their strategic partners or the individuals or companies that are providing services are incentivized. And because they don't have what I call unbiased support, kind of like you guys are providing when it comes to some of those vendors and some of those services, at the end of the day, the amount of money that gets left to chance is significant. I mean, we're seeing it across the board, right? If you can save 30% or 50%, I'm going to use taxes as an example. On your taxes, if you look at how much money did you pay in taxes last year? Okay, take an easy 30% and multiply that times 10. What does that look like over the last 10 years? What would it look like for the next 10 years? And now put a rate of return on that money. How much money are you really leaving on the table? It's kind of similar to what you're saying. And what I'd love to know, William, is what are some of the areas where you guys are seeing some of the biggest opportunities? You gave us some great examples. Where are the areas that you're seeing some of the biggest opportunities with typical clients in general?
Well, small package shipping and less than truckload shipping, it's always been big, because if you're an e-commerce type business, or you're a farm that ships seeds, or shipping is part of getting your product to the markets, that can be one of your largest costs outside your staffing costs, etc. So I find small package shipping, specifically the small package piece, because it's a different category from less than truckload. The shipping part can really cost businesses a lot of money. And one of the original category that we started with was telecom. Telecom has got so many moving parts. Therefore, when we go into businesses and we look at the telecom, because that can be anything from cell phones to vehicle tracking devices to internet to landline to everything that's telecommunication, we look at all of that. It's got so many moving parts, so it's difficult for businesses to get a handle on it. And it's the single biggest category where we find most savings for businesses. Again, because it's got so many moving parts, if you can streamline as much of it as possible, because we help to streamline first and foremost before we the savings comes as a byproduct of that. So those are two of the categories that we operate with, that we see some of the biggest savings. And waste is another one. With Scully Mitchell, we find on average 28% saving when we're going to look at categories. And the waste category, so whether you're a small business or whether you're a $1 billion business, because we work with companies of all sizes, sometimes we're finding as much as 50, 60, 70% savings when we look at the waste category. So from a percentage base, the waste category is one of the ones that businesses really need to be paying attention to, because again, if we can come in and find 50, 60, 70% of a saving, businesses could find something themselves if they just arm themselves with a bit more knowledge. It's not easy, I get it, especially coming from the outside in, because we don't get paid from the vendors. We work for the client. Our job is to work for the client. We share in the savings we find. Again, it's a little plug to our business, but it's important to have somebody in your business that's not charging you money for directing you towards a specific vendor, because some brokers will send you to a specific vendor because they're getting paid. So we call that they've got a horse in the race. So again, you have to be knowledgeable about who's advising you in the area that's going to help you save money when you're talking to your vendors. So those are three of the biggest areas that we find savings is telecom, shipping, and waste. But there's money lying in the table all over the place for all the categories that we look at. We even look at FICA taxes. I know we're not really here to specifically talk about taxes, but we have a partner that works with us that helps businesses save money in their payroll FICA taxes, which is huge. So those are big numbers as well when businesses are looking to save money.
Absolutely. We see that a lot when we're working with clients, especially on the business side. We transcend the gamut between the business, the personal, and all of the things. All encompassing picture from a true tax strategy and strategic tax planning standpoint. And yes, there's a lot of money that's hiding in there. William, shifting gears a little bit, when you're thinking about the clients, you mentioned that you work with clients in a consulting capacity. And listen, I grew up as a consultant. I've been in consulting my entire career, always in finance, always working with CEOs, always working business owners, smaller and larger. And one of the things that we know is that the individuals and the businesses that actually invest in themselves are the ones that benefit the most. On the other side, we have the individuals that are looking for the complimentary, for the free, for the just give me the idea and they'll go do it on their own. And yes, could they get some benefits? 100%. Are those benefits sustainable and long term? Probably not. What are you seeing with in terms of mindset? How is the mindset of the business owner that chooses to say they will self-elect to hire professionals to help them find the dollars versus the mindset of the individuals that are tripping over dollars to save pennies? Talk to us about
Yeah,
that.
that's actually one of the biggest objections that we get for what we do, because when we're talking to business owners, if I'm talking to the CFO is like the bullseye and the dartboard for us. So anybody in the C-suite, but the CFO. So we're speaking to the CFO, and what we find is they hire us and we come in and we do our work because we don't cost anything. We only bill them from finding the savings. So they get that. So businesses sometimes don't like having an external source coming into them because they're scared they're going to find something. They're scared they're going to find savings. And those individuals who are working in businesses, for me, they shouldn't be working in those businesses because they're not looking after the business's own needs. They're actually, it's a self-interest. They're kind of scared of what might be found, and somehow that reflects badly on them. And we cover that. We let CFOs in the C-suite know that we're not here to stand on anybody's toes and get in the way of anything. If anything, we do the work behind the scenes. You take the credit for doing it. If you're the CFO and you want to take it to the board, you take the credit for doing it. Didn't I do well? I brought in a company that's got information that I don't have. But the biggest piece in that for us is that where there's individuals in organizations that are looking after their own little island, that's where the problem lies, is from what we see. And they're not looking at the bigger picture of the company as overall, because to be honest, if you really were looking at the bigger picture of the company overall, you would never say no to having somebody come into your business, look at your billing statements, not your books, but look at your billing statements for nothing and give you an audit report for nothing and show you how you might save some money. But again, getting back to the beginning of what I said there, is that we find that they either get it right away and go, you know what, this is great, I love it. It doesn't cost me anything to have them come in and have a look under the hood. Or they feel threatened by it, and it's usually that threatened becomes of personal issues inside the head of the individuals.
I love everything that you're saying, because this was a conversation that I literally had a couple of days ago with someone who said, hey, I'd love to involve my executive team. And I said, perfect. And because he is the business owner, I said, I just want you to know that we do not engage with anybody, even in the C-suite. We truly engage. Our point to entry is through the entrepreneur, through the business owner, because what we found is exactly what you said, William. It's not that individuals are not wanting the best for the company, but there's so much more. And you talked about they feel threatened, they're afraid, the fear of the unknown, even though you're going to save the business, you're going to save the client, the business owner money, heavy money to the bottom line. This fear that somebody inside of the team is going to, somehow is going to reflect negatively on them is a big thing.
Yeah.
How do you overcome that with the entrepreneurs, with the business owners, the actual owners, not the C-suite executives? What have you seen works there? Because oftentimes the CFO, the COO, they're such amazing gatekeepers that, sometimes 2, 3, 4 years down the road, when the business owner finally understands that, oh my gosh, they need to make this decision themselves and not to rely necessarily on their executive team, in some cases, they've already lost so much money. How do you have those conversations with the business owners?
Yeah, I mean, it's to understand what your business needs and the information that you don't have without putting people on the back foot. We help them understand, look, we've got information that you don't have, and it comes free. It comes from no charge whatsoever. Businesses sometimes get hung up on what's the cost. If I have to pay you for this, it's costing me money, because we get paid over several months after the work's been done, after the savings have been put in place, and then they get threatened by that, the cost of having to continue to pay us even after we've done the work, because we do the work up front. With the business owners themselves, we tend to speak more with the business owners to the smaller to the medium-sized companies. And when you're speaking to the hundreds of millions of dollar companies, where you're speaking to the CFOs and the CEOs, you're never going to talk to the business owner, because the original business owner might be on a fishing boat somewhere and the company's been handed over to their executive team. It tends to be with the smaller companies where we get direct access to the actual owner. And I find where we talk to the owner and help them understand, look, we're going to bring knowledge into your business that you don't have. They're much more conducive to it, because they see the bigger picture. It's their baby. They own the company, whether they bought it or whether they started it from scratch. And we find that where you're getting to talk to the individual that does have that mindset of, like, this is my baby, this is my organization, they're much more willing to countenance what we have to say and what we have to offer. So to overcome their fears, it's kind of like helping them see the bigger picture. I guess that's the long story short here, is like help them see the bigger picture. It's not about you, and don't feel threatened by what we bring to the table. You should almost be feeling threatened the fact that you don't have what we bring to the table. And again, that's something that we play on as well. Is like, you may feel threatened by me coming and asking you for information to help you save money, but you should be feeling more threatened by the fact that the information I'm bringing to the table for you, you don't have and you can't have. Again, we have to have that conversation strategically, because you can't tell people, how stupid are you? You don't have this information. We're the best at everything. So we have to strategically help the business owner understand that there's information they don't have. And then when they get that, they tend to understand that, yeah, this is a good thing to have. And again, from our perspective of what we do, we don't charge any money. We'll come in and we'll spend months and months looking at your billing statements and your contracts and negotiating with your vendors, give you a report. There's no cost. We only charge you once the savings have been in place. So it's not just about that piece. It's the overall idea of that somebody's coming into my business and they may find things that I'm not good at. But again, it's helping them get rid of that fear by understanding it's not that you're not good at it. It's that you don't have access to that knowledge. It's not what you do. You're a shoe manufacturer. You make shoes. You sell shoes. You ship shoes, but you can't understand everything that's going on behind the scenes with the vendors that you're spending money on to get that product to market. It's helping them understand that piece, that you need to have every piece of knowledge in your business as possible. So I guess that's what I'm getting at here, is that it's a knowledge piece that we help them understand, that where the knowledge is lacking, we can bring it to the table for them, and then it drops the guard down.
And it's a beautiful approach when we have those conversations often. And you reminded me of a conversation I had with someone who, it was a business owner approaching $100 million. And the idea was, let's ask the CFO. And that's exactly what the knowledge that I imparted is, we can ask the CFO. Let me ask you, is the CFO the one that's controlling when you write the check to the IRS? No. On a personal or on a business side? No. Is the CFO the person that handles how your legacy is being built? No. Then, okay, this is great. We will involve the CFO as needed. Why is it that we're asking the CFO to provide an answer or an input to something that is directly impacting even personal bottom line? And sometimes when we shift that paradigm, it's huge. And then the other thing that we found, William, is that individuals, you're right, there's a level of fear of, just unraveling and being open about the things that they've perhaps struggled with for several years. And what we like to do is to meet the client where they're at, because the reality is everybody has attained their own level of perfection, their own level of beauty. They are where they're supposed to be. And understanding that, yes, there are other people out there who care about how they feel, who have their back, who are there to be there, to make sure that they provide that unbiased and insight and knowledge, is so powerful and truly can make a difference. Yes, finance is huge, but what about the personal? What about the life? What about how these individuals feel on a day-to-day basis? That's one of the things that we see as absolutely huge, especially for business owners, when they have that confidence of, okay, I feel understood. They feel understood. They feel taken care of. They feel like somebody's got their back. And that is so, so powerful. Shifting gears really
Yeah,
quickly, because we shift gears a lot
you,
on your
you
business, your
do.
next level. Yes, we do. And I tell you what, our listeners love it too, because we cover a lot of ground in a short amount of time. One of the things that I love to know from our guests is, what is one of your biggest failures or regrets as an entrepreneur, and what did you learn from it?
It's really a quite a simple thing. Is when I came to this country in 2011, I had worked in economic development. I had advised businesses, having never owned a business. And I'll say anybody that works in a business advisory place, make sure you've owned a business before you talk to businesses and advise them. So when I started my floor cleaning company in 2011, I made a lot of mistakes, not hiring the right people at the right time, being in a place where your machine's leaking water all over somebody's kitchen and there's nobody in the entire world there to help you. You learn a lot about yourself when you're in a situation like that. You can't turn to anybody for help, and it's like just the worst case scenario. It's like the machine's just pumping out gallons of water and you have to deal with it. So that leads to some of the mistakes that I've made. And for me, it was really about not hiring the right people in at the right time, because I had a business in floor cleaning. I did the work myself. I'm a working class Scottish guy. So as much as I can work with executives, I can roll my sleeves up and get in about the muck and get dirty myself. So I wasn't afraid of rolling my sleeves up and doing the work and starting my business. But for me, I think the biggest mistake I made there was not hiring the right people at the right time, or not even hiring anybody, thinking, okay, I'm not making enough money yet. I'll just keep going a little bit further until I make a little bit more money. Then I can afford to bring somebody in, rather than having that view that if I bring somebody in now, okay, I'm making a little bit less money, but for the long term, I'll end up making more money. So that was a huge learning experience for me. And yet, from a business perspective, the biggest mistake I've ever made was just not bringing people in at the right time. So I didn't fail. I kept that business going for 8 years, but it wasn't as successful as it maybe could have been or should have been because of that. And I always look back and think that's the one thing I did wrong there. Well, amongst others, but that's the biggest thing I did wrong, is not bring staff in to help me when I should have done.
100%. And it's the staff at the lower levels, at the support levels. It's also the individuals, the partners that can see the vision and perhaps step into the areas that sometimes, even as executive and as business owners, we have blind sides too, right? We have blind spots because maybe we've not done the thing and somebody else has. Maybe somebody has scaled the company faster and with more success, yet here you've got the business owner that thinks they're going to do it all on their own, but they've never done it. So now they have to continue doing what they've always done, or what their business delivers, the value that they deliver to the clients. And they have to learn how to try to optimize the business and how to try to keep more and how to grow the business and scale the business. And they don't have expertise in all of these areas. Yet somehow people are determined that they're going to make it work. And I love the fact that you pointed it out. It really doesn't. And so as you're on this call, as you're on this podcast and you're listening to this episode, just know that is a trend that comes up from a lot of leaders. We see that a lot. Those that have scaled businesses and then they scaled again are the people that don't just take a chance on themselves. They take a chance on building a team, whether it be internal or external, strategic partners, of unbiased support and support that can actually help you get to the next level. With that, William, we've had an amazing time today. I'd love to get any additional insights, just like if you're thinking about our entrepreneurs and the business owners that are listening to this podcast, what is one thing that sits on your heart that you would love to bless them with in terms of, here's something to not forget?
Don't be afraid to fail, because that's the reason why a lot of people don't get into business themselves. Whether you're with a franchise model or whether you're doing it on your own, I would say don't be afraid to fail. Don't be scared to try it. That's the biggest thing, the biggest barrier for me from stopping people getting into business from themselves. As I say, whether it's with a franchise model or whether it's an independent model, is you have to try it. And nobody's looking badly. If anything, people look at you, because the failure, if you want to call it that, with my floor cleaning business, I learned so much from that. I've learned so much. And nobody looked at me and said, oh, God, he's a terrible person because he had a business and it didn't work out. I'm sure there's not a single successful person listening to this hasn't failed somewhere. And that's because they got up off the butt and they said, okay, I'm going to do it anyway and I'm going to try it. And obviously, you have to take advice and make sure you've got the right financial backing, et cetera, et cetera. But my advice is go out there and try something. If you have a passion for something or you just want to try something, not doing it is the worst thing you can do.
And as you're listening to this episode, what I would love for you to do is to rate the show, rate the episode, and let us know what was the one thing that stood out from you. And if you're interested to learn more about what are potentially the areas that you might be looking into to enhance, to optimize the potential already perfection that you have, go and take the Wealth Health Scorecard and check it out, see where your gaps might be. So until next time, stay tuned for your next episode of Your Business, Your Next Level.
Thank you for joining us on Your Business, Your Next Level podcast, where it is all about helping you make more, keep more, and elevating your business to the next level. To learn more, make sure you head over to www.podcast.excelstra.com and don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the show. Again, that's podcast.excelstra.com. Until next time, thanks for listening.